Hello, my name's John Klepper. My claim to fame is that I get paid by the power company to waste electricity. Now, we're not talking about a couple of cents here or there just to leave a light bulb on. The fact of the matter is, I've been paid thousands of dollars so far, in this case, to waste just over 19.5 megawatts worth of electricity. To make things worse, that's clean green power that I generate myself with my own solar panels on my own property. Now, I'm not happy about having to waste electricity, nor is it something I take pride in. In fact, towards the end of this video, I'm going to ask for your help in petitioning the state to change that policy. But first, let's look at a small PV system and talk about how the power company manages that program. Next, we'll look at a large PV system and talk about how the power company uses a program called Generates and Consumes to encourage its customers to waste the excess power that they generate. Next, we'll look at a system that I designed that wastes a phenomenal amount of power every month in an effort to comply with this policy of Generates and Consumes. Finally, we'll look at some of the power companies' supporting documentation behind this notion of Generates and Consumes. There are some irregularities there that you want to keep your eye out. When we get there, we'll talk about some of the things that need to be changed. But for now, let's go talk about and look at a small PV system. A configuration of this size is capable of meeting the average electrical needs for the typical family in southern New Mexico. A system of this size would fall under the power company's small photovoltaic program. That simply means that it generates less than 10 kilowatts per hour. Let's go back to the desk for a minute and talk about that program. Alright, let's talk for a minute about the small PV program. This graph represents a customer's electrical demand over the course of a year. At some point in time, their lowest usage is 300 kilowatts in a month, and their highest usage is 700 kilowatts in a month, giving us an average demand of 500 kilowatts. Graphed out here with the sine wave. Now, if this customer was going to install a PV system, they'd want to shoot for something that met their average demand, around 500 kilowatts. The reason being, at this point in the graph, and it doesn't matter what month this is, but their electrical demand is only 300 kilowatts. Their system, however, is generating around 500 kilowatts. That extra 200 kilowatts that they're generating, they're able to carry forward on their bill as an electrical credit. This is power that they can buy back from the power company later in the year. Essentially, they're banking the power here. It's this kind of program that encourages conservation. And the reason being, if a customer lowers their usage here, that increases the amount of electricity that they bank over here. Now let's look at a large photovoltaic system and talk about how the policy of Generates and Consumes actually encourages the waste of this excess energy. A system of this size would fall under the power company's large photovoltaic program. That simply means that it's capable of generating over 10 kilowatts in an hour. Systems like this are also affected by a policy called Generates and Consumes. That policy encourages customers to waste the excess power that they generate. Let's go back to the desk and I'll show you how that works out. Let's talk for a minute about the large PV program. Same numbers on the same style graph. However, this time, if a customer was going to install a solar array, they'd want to shoot for something that met close to their peak electrical demand. The reason is because there is no carry forward into the future with the electricity that they generate in excess during this time of low usage. That being the case, the excess power that's generated under this size system winds up being sold to the power company at the wholesale rate, essentially 3 cents. However, the associated carbon credits that also go along with this power wind up being given to the power company for free. It's because of that policy of Generates and Consumes, which encourages a customer with a low demand and high generation to waste this power during this period of the year. Let me say that again. If we only use 300 kilowatts during this time of the year, and our system is generating 700 kilowatts, you've got two options. You can give that power to the power company basically for free, or you can waste the electricity and get paid for the carbon credits associated with those extra 400 kilowatts. Now what I'd like to do is show you a device that I came up with to waste my excess energy, a phenomenal amount of power every month. So let's go talk about that. What you're looking at is a device. Its sole purpose is to waste as much electricity as possible. The way it does this is by circulating water 24 hours a day from heat exchangers located in the freezers on the right-hand side to the hot water heaters that are located on the left-hand side. There's a computer that monitors the amount of excess energy being generated and turns on or off the hot water heaters as necessary. Again, it's because of this policy of generates and consumes that customers like myself with large PV systems are encouraged to waste any excess energy they may generate during the course of the year. Now let's go back to the desk for a minute and talk about some of the shocking information I uncovered while looking into the background of generates and consumes. Okay, now's the important time because we're going to talk about PNM's policy of generates and consumes. I've got a couple of different examples that I want to show you, and then we'll come back and talk about it. So let's look at the first one. Okay, this first document comes from PNM's very own website. This document basically outlines what you have to do to participate in the large PV program. You don't have to read everything. In fact, I've underlined the parts that are of interest. So you can see here where it says generates and consumes. That's what we're interested in. Generates and consumes. Okay, let's press on. Okay, so you just saw the first example where they talk about generate and consumes. So let's keep score. Put a check in that box. Now let me show you another example. This next document is a request for proposal that PNM issued on April 6th of 2011. Ironically, this RFP is calling for companies outside of the state to come in and do basically what I'm trying to do already. Anyway, as you can see by the section that's underlined in red, it says, must be contracted for delivery in New Mexico or be consumed or generated by an end-use customer. The key part here is consumed or generated. Okay, let's press on. Well, that's odd. Did you notice how this time it didn't say generate and consume? It said generate or consume. Well, let's put a check in that box. I got another example for you. Let's go have a look. This third document is a sample of the agreement that PNM signs with the individuals who are interested in entering into a large PV program. Two things of interest here. First, you'll notice that it starts out with a whereas in accordance with 17.9.572.13.c NMAC. Basically what they're saying right there is that this section that follows is a direct reference of what comes out of the administrative code. And then again, if we read further down, that section that part that's underlined, it says generated by the large solar facility and consumed on the premises. Generated and consumed. Okay, let's press on. Is it me, or are you getting confused? Because, did you notice this time? Again, we're back with generate and consume. So, at this point of my researching the difference between what was going on here, I went and looked at the New Mexico Administrative Code, the code that PNM quotes as the source for this policy. So let's have a look at what the code says. This final document is an excerpt from the NMAC, New Mexico Administrative Code, as copied directly from the State of New Mexico website. You can see in the section that I've outlined, it says, for delivery in New Mexico or consumed or generated. It's critical. Let's go over that again. For delivery in New Mexico or consumed or generated. Okay, let's go back to the desk. Okay, all levity aside, this is really important because you just saw the New Mexico State Administrative Code says it's generate or consume, not generate and consume. So here's the problem. It looks to me like sometimes P&M misinterprets the law when they stand to benefit economically, and sometimes they don't. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I've talked to a lawyer about this, and apparently this is criminal manipulation of the code. That's not allowed. If I can't do that, why is P&M being able to do that? This needs to be fixed, or this needs to be removed as part of the qualifiers for the photovoltaic program in New Mexico, because this is a blatant breach of the law. So let's go look at some other stuff. Did you see this?
So tonight I challenge you to join me in setting a new goal. By 2035, 80% of America's electricity will come from clean energy sources.
So I hope I'm not the only one who saw that speech by the president where he talked about 80% of our electricity coming from renewable sources by 2035. Let's face it, that's going to be a hard nut to crack if obstacles like this keep getting thrown up in the way of the small entrepreneurial guy like myself. So what can you do to help? First off, if you live in New Mexico, I'd ask you to take the link for this video and forward it on to everybody you know, and in turn ask them to forward it on to people they know. Also, please send this link on to your local representative and legislator, asking them to look into this issue. If you don't live in the state of New Mexico, this issue still affects you, and the reason is because states and power companies trade and buy power from one another as demand increases and decreases. So even though you don't live in New Mexico at the moment, you could potentially be paying for this issue as well. Also, so if that's the case, I'd ask you to, again, send this link to your friends and neighbors, and also send it on to the media, to the newspaper, to the local television, to the local radio station. I'm always willing to talk to anybody and everybody about this issue at any time. Also, on the right-hand side of this video, there's a link to a petition. I'd ask you to go to that link, enter your information, as well as a couple of comments about the issue that I've raised. I plan on going to Santa Fe in the next month, and we'll try to meet with the governor, members of the legislature, as well as representatives from the Public Regulatory Commission. I would like to take my thoughts about this issue, as well as your thoughts, to them at that time. Again, I appreciate your time and your concern, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.